Serena Williams' greatest asset was never her serve. It was the enormous historical pressure she carried, pressure that would crush any other athlete.
Just think about that for a second. We're not talking about that cannon of a serve that completely changed the women's game, or those insane ground strokes that just owned the baseline for, 20 years? No, her greatest weapon was the pressure. That invisible, suffocating weight of expectation, of history, every single time she walked out on court. For almost anyone else, that's a career killer. But for Serena, that's where she got her power. So today, we're going to decode the incredible psychological machine she built, not just to handle that pressure, but to turn it into a weapon. We are going to unpack the Serena System.
All right, to really get this, we have to look at a moment that on the surface looked like a total failure. It's 2018, she's just made this unbelievable comeback to a major final after having her daughter. She's chasing that all-time record, a number that's been hanging over her head for years. The whole world is watching. And she loses. I mean, can you imagine the heartbreak? But here's the thing. This is where her system kicks in. There's no big public meltdown. Instead, that loss and all the insane pressure that came with it gets reframed. It's not a failure anymore. It's just the data point. The pressure isn't a weight, it's now a tank of high-grade fuel for the next training session. This is the system, raw and in real time.
So here's how we're going to break this all down. First up, we'll look at the weight of history and how that one loss was really a test of her whole philosophy. Then we're going back to the beginning to see how this system was forged in Compton. After that, we dive into the core of it all, the Serena System unpacked, breaking down her 3 pillars of mental dominance. Then we'll see the system in action, looking at the daily habits that make it all work. We'll look at the jaw-dropping results in a new standard of greatness, and then, most importantly, we'll talk about how you can use this in your own life with your pressure, your fuel.
So let's go back to that moment, that loss. The pressure to get that record. I mean, it wasn't just about winning another tournament, it was about her legacy as the greatest of all time, period. Every single interview, every news story for years was all about that one number. That kind of obsession from the outside world can absolutely destroy an athlete. But for Serena, it just became the ultimate stress test for a mindset she'd been building since she was a kid. And this is that mindset. Let's call it what it is, pressure as fuel. And look, this is way more than just being tough or having grit. This is a conscious, repeatable, systematic choice she makes. It's deciding to look at all that external chaos, the hype, the doubt, the history, all of it, and see it not as something you have to carry, but as a resource you can burn. It's basically psychological alchemy, turning all that noise from the outside into a laser-focused fire on the inside. But a system this strong, it doesn't just happen. You have to forge it.
Which brings us to our next point. To get the how, you got to understand the where. We're going back to the public tennis courts in Compton, California in the 90s. This is where the foundation for the Serena System was poured. Not in some fancy academy, but in a place built on purpose-driven isolation and surrounded by doubt.
You have to picture it. Serena and Venus, they were complete outsiders. They weren't coming up through the typical country club pipeline. They were on public courts for hours every day, intentionally ignoring how the tennis establishment said things should be done. And because of that, there was this constant skepticism. People doubted their dad's methods, their powerful game, their very right to be in a sport that, frankly, didn't look like them. So what do you do when the world doubts you? You build a fortress. And their family became that fortress, a totally self-contained unit where the only opinions that mattered were the ones on the inside.
And the master key to that fortress was a lesson their father, Richard Williams, drilled into them from day one. External negativity is merely noise that must be filtered out. Now, this wasn't just some nice-sounding advice. It was a core operating principle. It was the first, most crucial piece of the system. You control your inputs. You decide what's signal and what's noise. All that early training and filtering out the chaos and the doubt, that was the groundwork for her entire career. It proved that if you control what gets into your head, the pressure from the outside can never actually break you.
Okay, so we've got the origin story. We know the why. Now let's get into the blueprint itself. What are the actual practical principles that make up the Serena System? This is where her philosophy stops being an idea and starts becoming a weapon, a tool for total psychological dominance.
The whole thing really stands on 3 massive pillars. First, there's the state of intense mental discipline, called the single-point focus. Second, a totally unique psychological deal she had with her sister, the Anti-Rivalry Mandate. And third, this powerful internal engine called the "You Are the Greatest" affirmation. Let's really dig into each one.
Pillar 1, the single-point focus. This is that lesson about filtering noise from her childhood, but on an entirely different level. And let's be real, this is not some peaceful Zen-like state. It's a brutal, exhausting fight. Put yourself in her shoes for a second. It's championship point at a major. You've got the roar of the crowd, the millions watching at home, the weight of that trophy, all of history on the line. All of that is noise. The single point focus is the mental toughness to ruthlessly shut all of it out. The only thing in the world that matters is executing the very next shot. The ball toss, the contact, the follow-through. It's this extreme state of now that she had to fight for on every single point. And that's how she played her best when the pressure was at its absolute peak.
Pillar 2. The Anti-Rivalry Mandate. Okay, this might be one of the most brilliant psychological moves in sports history. The world was desperate for a Serena versus Venus rivalry. It would have been the biggest story in sports. But they made a pact. They decided, together, that their competitive fire would always be aimed outward, at everyone else, and never, ever at each other. This is just genius, right? They took what could have been a huge weakness, a sibling rivalry that could have destroyed them, and they turned it into their greatest strength. They were a team, against the world, not just two sisters fighting over the same prize. And that pact protected their most important relationship, letting them conquer the tennis world as a unit.
And then there's Pillar 3, the "you are the greatest" affirmation. And this is so much more than just positive thinking. It's not about looking in the mirror and giving yourself a pep talk. No, it's an active internal conversation that forces you to raise your own standards. See, by defining her own identity as the greatest, she created this internal bar that she then felt psychologically forced to meet. It demanded that she play at a level that lived up to that identity. So if her game started to slip, that affirmation wasn't a comfort blanket, it was a wake-up call. It's a powerful feedback loop. High expectations driving high performance, which then reinforces the high expectations.
Okay, so we've got the 3 pillars of the mind. But a brilliant mindset is pretty useless if you don't have the discipline to back it up. So how did Serena turn these big ideas into the day-in, day-out habits that built a career that lasted 20 years? Let's look at the system in action.
First off, the physical part. To carry that kind of psychological weight, she had to build what you'd call an anti-fragile body. It wasn't just about being strong, it was about being able to recover and withstand the absolute grind of the Pro Tour. Her training was all high intensity, brutal strength work, explosive drills, all designed to absorb the incredible stress of her game. But here's the key. That intensity was perfectly matched with an equally intense recovery plan. We're talking systematic rest, massages, perfect nutrition. For every bit of energy she spent, she put that same energy back into recovery. Her body had to be a fortress that could handle the insane demands her mind was putting on it.
And second, her mental recovery process, which is maybe the most important piece of all. The post-match deconstruction. Think back to that 2018 loss. This is the exact system she ran. Step 1, acknowledge the failure. You face it, but you strip out all the emotion. It is what it is. Step 2, objective analysis. The loss isn't a personal flaw, it's just a data dump. It's a clean report on the parts of your game that your opponent was able to exploit. And step 3, the most important part, immediate correction. The very next practice, she is working on fixing those specific things. This process is so clinical. It makes sure the lesson from the loss gets put to use before the sting of defeat has time to set in. Failure just becomes data, and data becomes immediate improvement.
So, a system this demanding, this methodical, what does it actually produce? Well, the results, they pretty much speak for themselves. This is where we can just zoom out and be in awe of what she actually did.
Let's just start with one number, 23. 23 Grand Slam singles titles. That is the most of any player in the Open era, man or woman. Every single one of those was a testament to her system. Every one was won under a mountain of pressure. That number isn't just a record, it is 23 separate pieces of evidence that the system works when it matters most.
But what's even crazier is how long she did it. 2 decades. 2 full decades of dominance. In 1999, she wins her first major as a teenager. Through the 2000s, she gets to world number 1. In the 2010s, when most players are thinking about retirement, she has one of the greatest runs in sports history. In 2017, she wins a major while pregnant. I mean, it's beyond comprehension. And then she comes back and makes a final after having her baby? This isn't just a great career, it's complete domination across multiple generations of the sport. It proves her system was built to last.
So when you look at the whole story, this is the transformation, from the underestimated kid on the public courts of Compton to a true global icon of power and resilience. She didn't just play the game, she rewrote the rules on how champions are made. Her entire career is living proof that a system you build yourself from the outside can be more powerful than any traditional way of doing things.
And that brings us to the final and I think most important part. Serena's story isn't really just about tennis. It's a masterclass in how to perform at the highest level. Now, you might not be chasing Grand Slam titles, but the pressures you face in your job, in your life, with your goals, those are very real. And the same principles that guided her can absolutely guide you.
Because here's the biggest lesson from the Serena System. Pressure isn't something you can just run away from. It's a part of life. It's just raw energy. It's coming, whether you like it or not. So the real question isn't, how do I avoid pressure? The real question is, how am I going to choose to transform it? Are you going to let it crush you, or are you going to decide to turn it into your fuel?
So here's a simple protocol, straight from her playbook, that you can actually use. First, choose to embrace high-stakes situations. Don't run from them, see them as a chance to do something great. Second, when you're in that moment, be ruthless about filtering out distractions, the noise, the self-doubt, all of it. Third, narrow your focus to one thing, the immediate task right in front of you, not the whole project, just the next email, the next conversation, the next single point. And finally, demand the absolute best from yourself. Just like Serena, create an internal identity of excellence that you then have to live up to.
When you look back at it all, Serena Williams built her entire legendary career on one simple truth. Pressure is just a form of energy. The Serena System was the engine she designed to take the unbelievable weight of the world's expectations and transform it into a nearly unstoppable two-decade run of dominance. It's a powerful lesson that true, lasting greatness often comes down to one simple rule. The pressure you carry is the fuel you need to win.